Welcome, everyone. Everyone can hear me okay? At home, you can hear me. Thank you. Okay. So welcome to IMCC, the Insight Meditation Community of Charlotte. My name is Denise. I am one of the 6 Dharma leaders here at IMCC. The title of tonight's talk is Disjointed. And unfortunately, tonight's talk is going to be a bit disjointed. It's an adjective that describes something that's disconnected, illogical, or just messed up. I'm feeling most like the latter. With all the heaviness that's going on around the world and the sadness of late, I wanted to do a talk on trying to be a bit lighter, to somehow reduce some of the heaviness weighing us down in our hearts and our minds and our spirits. But now there's a new heaviness that can't be ignored. I need to realize and address the elephant in the room. I feel completely inadequate to do it any justice, and I am experiencing imposter syndrome, trying to broach the complexity of war, as if I could help someone else to find reduction of suffering in the midst of a war. So tonight, I would like to start off briefly sharing some of the Buddha's words on conflict, for his words are far more insightful and wise than my own. Then I would like to switch and turn towards trying to find lightness in our personal environment, and then our minds. And then I'd like to finish with a little Buddhist humor. See, a bit disjointed. Okay. This is part of clinging that I couldn't let go of what I originally wanted to do. At first, it seemed as if these were all completely different topics and themes, but the truth is there's a common thread, and I believe that to be clinging. The second noble truth, suffering is due to clinging. And the origin of suffering and the clinging is due to the 3 defilements, which are greed, hatred, and delusion. So I'm going to begin from the Buddha's words as translated by Bhikkhu Bodhi. There's a section called A World in Turmoil, the Origin of Conflict. Why is it that Brahmins fight with Brahmins and householders with householders? It is Brahman because of the attachment to sensual pleasures. Now here they don't mean sexual or intimate pleasure. They mean any pleasure of the sense coming into the eye, the ear, the touch, the taste, the smell, the thought of the mind. Adherence to sensual pleasures, fixation on sensual pleasures, addiction, obsession, and holding firmly to sensual pleasures, that Brahmins fight with Brahmins and householders with householders. And why is it that ascetics fight with ascetics? It is Brahman because of attachment to views. Adherence to views, fixation and addiction to views, obsession with views, holding firmly to views that ascetics fight with ascetics. Why do beings live in hate? Beings wish to live without hate, harming, hostility, or ill will. They wish to live in peace. Yet they live in hate, harming one another, hostile, and as enemies. It is the bonds of envy and greediness that binds beings so that, although they wish to live without hate and hostility and ill will, and to live in peace, but wind up living in hate, harming one another, hostile, and as enemies. And where does this envy and greediness come from? It comes from liking and disliking. And what gives rise to liking and disliking? It's desire. It arises, that desire, from thinking. When the mind thinks about something, desire arises. When the mind thinks about nothing, it does not arise. It goes on then to what's called the dark chain of causation. For those of you who are familiar with dependent origination, the idea that if one condition is present, the next will likely follow. Thus, Ananda, in dependence upon feeling, there is craving. In dependence upon craving, there is pursuit. Depending upon pursuit, there is gain. And from gain, there is decision-making. And upon decision-making, there is desire and lust. In dependence upon desire and lust, there is attachment. And in attachment, there is possessiveness. Dependence on possessiveness, there is greediness. And in dependence on greediness, there is defensiveness. And it is because of defensiveness that various evil, unwholesome things originate. Taking up of clubs and weapons, conflicts, quarrels, disputes, insults, slander, and falsehood. Greed, hatred, and delusion are unwholesome. Whatever action a greedy, hating, and deluded person heaps up by deeds, words, or thoughts is unwholesome. A person overpowered by greed, hatred, and delusion, his thoughts controlled by them, inflicts under false pretext upon another by killing, imprisonment, confiscation of property, false accusations, or expulsion, being prompted in this by the thought, I have power. I want power. And this all is unwholesome too. Maybe this is about the war, maybe this is about us, maybe this is about our community. And what, monks, is the escape from this sensual pleasure? It is the removal of desire and lust for sensual pleasures. Easier said than done, no? But first we must be awake, and we need to have wise view to see that this is happening. We all seek pleasure, security, and control, and we avoid pain and want to run from things that cause us fear. We desire happiness and do our very best to get away from that which is unsatisfactory to us. These are tough times out there, where much seems or indeed is out of our control. We witness things in our daily lives that are not simpatico with our value system. And we desire to have change that improves harmony and compatibility. We thirst for predictability, safety, and justice. I must be honest. I myself do not know how yet to come to equanimity in the face of these circumstances. Equanimity being an evenness of mind and understanding the situation and accepting it as it is without changing my heart or my behavior. I say behavior to be wholesome. I want to be wholesome. I don't want to become unwholesome. The only way I can understand is to stay the course of this practice, moment by moment, to try to be present in the moment and to be at peace as best as possible, or at least not to breed a sense of unease in another. We want to recognize what we're feeling in our own mind and our own body and our own energy. Where do we stand and where is our heart? I am responsible for my heart and how I affect another from what I deliver. What they do with it, that's another story, okay? We start with each one of us trying to be as peaceful and harmonious as possible. It's the serenity prayer, knowing what you can change and what you can't. The Buddhist texts endorse non-violence. Seems pretty cut and dry. One who repays an angry man with anger makes things worse for himself. Not retaliating, one wins a battle hard to win. That's a tough one. I'm sure we have all known a circumstance where we tried to keep our calm when we're in a tough situation and not spew that hard word and just ask someone, please think about what you're doing. I'm going to think about my end and let's catch up at another time. And sometimes that person comes back and apologizes if you just gave a little space. And then sometimes I need to apologize. On an appeal for empathy, the Buddha said you want to have the ability to imagine yourself in the place of others. All beings fear violence, all fear death. Using oneself as a criterion, one should not kill or cause death. That is from the Dhammapada. If you don't want this for yourself, don't do it to another. The golden rule. Now, it was interesting. Bhikkhu Bodhi had an article. The article actually was from 2014. It was called War and Peace. And it is found on the inquiringmind.com website. And he takes a look at what's the Buddhist teachings, which is nonviolence, versus what are the society's needs, and is there ever a just war? He even looks at one point, can it be just to join the military? We won't have time to go into all that tonight, but I highly encourage folks to take a look at that War and Peace article by Bhikkhu Bodhi. It's fascinating. The earnest follower puts down the rod and weapon and dwells compassionate towards all living beings. Maybe at our level, the only thing we can do is to try to prevent our own little wars within ourselves and with others, perhaps our neighbor, our community, or maybe the world. Practice our metta meditation so that we can change our own hearts to keep us in contact with what we value and we truly wish for ourselves and for another. So when we do come into the situation of a conflict, we can try to handle that wisely. There's a Jakarta tale that tells the story of a king who was determined never to shed blood, even though this required surrendering his kingdom and becoming a prisoner of his enemy. Through the power of loving kindness, the king managed to win release, transform his captor into a friend, and regain his kingdom. That's a tall order. I also wonder if it's just a tale, yes? And I thought, have I even seen this ever in my lifetime? I thought maybe Viktor Frankl, Nelson Mandela, and there are others. Few. They're good examples. And maybe on a few moments we can do that on a small scale. Maybe somebody here can do it on a huge scale, and I encourage you if you can do it. Good. Choose wholesome actions, thoughts, and words for your best chance at peace, especially within. So here's our shifting point, our first joint in the disjoint. Okay. I want to now look at a more personal level how to release some clinging. So everybody take a exhale. In an attempt to soothe ourselves from frustration and distress, we may use ineffective coping strategies such as eating too much, sensual desire, or buying things for ourselves for momentary joy. However, that does not last, and it can have burdensome after effects and weigh us down. Recently, I enjoyed a podcast on dödsdaning, the Swedish practice of death cleaning. Clearing out your material and digital now possessions to not burden your next of kin when you meet your final day. The author taught not only the benefits of unburdening things for your family as you leave, but also yourself with whichever belongings you choose to keep, that they don't weigh you down. So that motivated me to take a few trips to Goodwill and a few to the garbage can. Lightening our environment can free us. So I love this story by Thanissaro Bhikkhu. It's in his book, Selves and Not Selves. It's the story to engage folks to focus carefully on learning what you can and can't take with you. It's a story of Ajahn Lee. He was taking a number of students, both lay people and monks, and he was taking them to the forest to meditate. And it was I guess it was a long retreat. It wasn't a quick one. Who was asking me about it? You asked me about the 7-day retreat before? Great practice. Okay. So going to the forest, they were going to meet at the main station in Bangkok for the train and take it up to Lopburi. Then they went to the forest. They'll go to the forest from there. So Ajahn Fong, another monk, went along for the trip. And he knew that if you were with Ajahn Lee, you had better take as little as possible. So he packed a small bag. But many of the other students didn't know this, and they took 3-4 bags, large ones at that. And he's not sure why they had done that, but thought maybe they'd hire porters when they got to the forest, to carry him to the forest. At any rate, when they got to the main station in Bangkok, Ajahn Lee saw all the bags everyone had brought. So instead of getting on the train, he decided to walk down the tracks. And if the Ajahn walks down the tracks, we all walk down the tracks. Now everyone quickly started taking their bags behind them and walking along, struggling to carry the bags. After a while, they started complaining about what a struggle it was. The bags were too heavy. At first, Ajahn Lee said nothing. He just kept walking. But after a while, the complaining got very insistent, and all he said was, "If it's heavy, throw it away." So one by one, the students stopped to sort out their bags. Whatever they really needed, they put in one bag. And as for the remaining bags, hold yourselves here, and I'm glad you're all sitting, okay? They threw them in the pond, the lotus ponds on either side. Okay, so much for environmental concern. That wasn't part of the story. Then they got to the railroad station, and Ajahn Lee saw that their bags were much more manageable. So he let them all get on the train. In this way, he taught them an important lesson, that you have to be very careful and selective about what you take with you. And what can you take with you? Two things. One is your actions, and one is the quality of your mind. With each thing we bring into our lives, can we ask, will this last? Can I hold on to it forever, at least until I die? And what's the cost of holding on to it? There's a cost to everything we do. Does this item bring me closer to my aspirations, or does it cause me a loss of energy? Does maintaining it cause any physical or financial distress, fear? Do I believe in some way that this item defines me? Who am I without this item? You guys are probably all familiar with Marie Kondo. She says, only keep that which sparks joy. So joy is known with what you keep and also with what you let go. Sometimes I forget how nice it is to feel lighter and unencumbered, to let go. And why don't I do it more often? Mindlessness. Ajahn Amaro asked the question when letting go, is this cessation of clinging, or is this loss? One is freedom, one is suffering. Okay, we need another exhale. Because we're going on to our next shift. This one's clearing the mind of clutter. In Buddhism, worry isn't seen as a useful habit. It's seen as a source of dukkha, suffering, and disease. Incessant mind thoughts, particularly if we are holding on with greed, hatred, and delusion. If we're doing that, we're going to know some suffering. The Dalai Lama said, why worry? If a problem is fixable, if the situation is such that you can do something about it, then there is no need to worry. If it's not fixable, then worrying is not going to help. There's no benefit in worrying whatsoever. I really liked this quote that I saw by a fellow Charles Spurgeon. I don't know who he is, but anyway, it says, anxiety does not empty tomorrow of its sorrows. It only empties today of its strength. Remember, in clinging and grasping for things to be different than they are, we are our own energy vampires. The Metta Sutta teaches us this is what should be done by one skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm, wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Now a huge sigh. This is our last shift. Good job. Blessed are those who can laugh at themselves. They shall never cease to be amused. So a little humor, a little Buddhist humor. So there's a little cartoon. It'll be hard for anyone perhaps to see. It is two monks in saffron robes. One is the master and one is the student. And it's called the Buddhist Compliment. The master says to the student, "I've never met anyone so thoughtless in my life. Good work." The story of the Buddha receiving a present. As he opens the sweetly wrapped gift, to find nothing inside, he says, "It's just what I wanted." There's a class of budding Dharma students. When the students asks, "I'm meditating on my inability to meditate due to the fact that when I meditate, I can't stop thinking about how I can't meditate because I'm thinking about my inability to meditate. Is that correct?" Okay. There's a male and a female sitting in meditation with a caption above the guy, the little balloon, with his thoughts, and it says, "Who am I? Who am I? Who am I?" The woman sitting next to him, "I wonder who that guy is." There is a cartoon then of a meditator in perfect posture with the caption, "It is all fun and games until someone loses an eye." A monk who sees his fellow monk with a big smile. So he says, "Why are you so happy?" The monk replies, "I have no idea." I wish you safety, peace, mind and body health. In seeking unburdening, I wish you ease.